please join me in welcoming Joya McCarthy, Managing Director and Northwest Division Executive at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, to introduce tonight's program.
Well, thank you. It's always an honor to be with the Commonwealth Club. If you saw in the video the first black and white picture, if anybody knows their San Francisco history, that was A.P. Giannini. So we've enjoyed a wonderful partnership, and it's always a pleasure to support Inform and the Commonwealth Club, especially with a topic tonight that really lets us live our purpose, which is to make financial lives better. So our guest speaker tonight, I don't think he needs an introduction here in San Francisco, so I'll let this be a refresher for all of you. Alexis Ohanian, 2005, started Reddit, co-founded Reddit in 2005, and it has been labeled the front page of the internet, and it really has become a staple, you know, for both tech and culture. And then earlier this year, with Gary Tan, your VC firm, Initialized Capital, is also a microfinance fellow for Kiva, partner with the Y Combinator, and helped launch the travel website Hipmunk, and has been labeled kind of the mayor of the internet. He's been called that many times. But I think his latest endeavor, arguably the hardest but the most rewarding, was this past September when he and his wife welcomed their first child, the adorable Alexis Olympia Ohanian Jr. And if you don't follow him on Instagram, you should, because she's really cute. And he is joined with us today with Katie Bethel, who is the founder of Plus. That's paid leave for the United States. And again, she's an advocate working for paid leave for all Americans. And just so you know, there is no mandate for paid leave for parents across the nation. There's no state mandate, there's nothing federal. So it really is up to individual employers and companies and organizations to help provide that transition for families that are trying to grow. At Bank of America, we provide 100% paid leave for 16 weeks. So we provide that for mothers, for fathers, and for adoptive parents. And the term is very flexible. That 16 weeks can be used all at once. It can be split up between the two parents. Whatever the needs of the family is what we want to help them do. And then we also have our life event services team through our HR partners that help each family with what those needs are and how to make sure that they can translate that for them and what fits them the best. But without further ado, I want to make sure you hear the conversation, because funding fatherhood is really what helps people live their dreams. We know at Bank of America that it is not the woman who always takes care of the family. The dad does too, and we want to make sure that we are creating equality and adding value to each and every family. And I'm so proud that I get to have paid parental leave, and I get to do it every day. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Katie and Alexis.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hello. How you doing?
You've been busy.
I've been busy.
Yeah.
Very busy. It's been exciting.
Yeah. Do you get to settle down now? You've just come back.
I just had had a week of vacation. My wife and I do not do that very often. So like everything we do, we take it very seriously. We give it 110%. So.
I don't know. My vacations,
even our vacation was
fly
very
to Italy and then stay there, and then come home.
I believe you're referring to my Instagram post. It caught a lot more attention than I expected. It was not nearly as spontaneous as it seemed. I had hundreds of thousands of people telling me about some Friends episode that I had never seen before, but that evidently it reminded them of. No, it was a wonderful vacation. Italy's amazing. My wife had never been to Venice before, and it was a fun little
that's
treat.
lovely.
Junior came along too. She loves
Junior.
She loves water, and so a city built on top of it was a pretty appealing thing for her.
Yeah.
She's still getting her sea legs too. It was cute because she's still. I mean, I don't know. There's probably a few parents out here.
Yeah. Parents.
Clearly, parents, because you're exhausted.
Yeah. Look, the
and you're checking your watches, going,
row.
"Oh, geez,
like
we gotta
parents
get
got
home
here
soon."
early. This is a night out.
I love it. I love it. Is it an open bar out here? You can purchase, but you can purchase your drinks though to support the Commonwealth Club,
share.
which is important. Yeah. I got oh wait. Oh, this is beer, so we're gonna get in.
Yeah.
We'll get into the beverages.
When they hold up the 10-minute time card.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know. But no, I really, I did not realize just how much it would change my life, and needless to say, now I really understand Game of Thrones. And what I mean by that, so we got married and had this baby in rapid succession, and so very quickly I went from being, very selfish and sort of about me to now having a wife and a child, and I instantly, it all made sense. And what I mean is,
wait, the sort of like honor.
House Ohanian
House Ohanian
needs to be protected and defended and supported at all costs. And I'm not advocating for some of the things that happen on Game of Thrones, but I really felt a new level of responsibility, and it was exhilarating because it made the work and my career, which I'm so proud of and which I thought was just the most important thing, it actually, in realizing one, it wasn't the most important thing, but two, it gave it a purpose that was so much bigger than just me. And so yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm very lucky because I've got an awesome partner in this, who most people actually like a lot more than me. I'm sure most of y'all showed up here being like, gosh, I wonder if he's gonna show up. I'm not here for Alexis. I know it's all of you.
She has a tournament here
That's
next
fine.
week. But let's zero in a little bit more. Okay, so the topic of
we're in a
tonight.
long distance marriage. She's in Florida this week, working and training, and I'll see her this weekend, hopefully.
So the topic of tonight, we have a sold out crowd here to hear about founding, funding, and fatherhood.
Yes.
And putting those three things together is pretty new in sort of popular discourse. How do those things come together for you?
It is. It's wild. I feel really fortunate because, I got to spend the first part of my first job out of college was founding a company, founding Reddit, and for a decade, not all at once because we sold it and then I left. That's when I was in Armenia for Kiva and then came back. And anyway, but for a decade, I really considered it my baby.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, and today, my partner Gary and I, we invest in early stage companies. We are the first people to write someone a check and believe in them enough to give them money and then also work with them and hope that they can build something amazing. And we talk about this a lot in the context of a founder and their relationship with their startup and it being like a child. There's this very common symbol or metaphor. You know what I'm talking about, Garrison? Where you will do anything. You think it's existential. You think about the company 24/7. You think you understand what it's like, and it is special. And I am grateful for my career as an entrepreneur. But then when fatherhood showed up, it was a different story. And I felt that new level of responsibility. But more importantly, I realized that, we have a long ways to go. And a thing that I took for granted, lots of things. One of the things I took for granted was, probably 6 months into the Reddit turnaround, I came back in 2014, 15, 50 employees. There wasn't an HR person yet.
Yeah.
We brought on Caitlin Holloway.
Wait, you had 50 employees and no HR yet?
This is part of the reason why I had to come back. It's part of the reason why I'm engaged.
Yeah. No, that's the moment.
And Caitlin Holloway, who's our VP of People and Culture, showed up and worked amazingly well to get the house in order and build out that team. And one of the conversations that happened pretty early was, okay, this company needs an employee handbook.
Yeah.
It needs policies. And it was like, great, okay, yes, obviously. And she in walking me through them, I know we went over the parental leave policy, and my only question was, okay, how is this market? Is this the kind of thing that someone would expect from a tech company so that we can make sure to get the best talent we can? And I didn't think much else of it. And I thought, okay, this sounds reasonable, great. And then it wasn't until I was getting ready because my wife was pregnant and we were building the plan, and I got to sit down just like any other employee at the company and build a plan with someone on the team who said, look, you don't have to take your 16 weeks all at once. You can spread it out. You can, if you need to go to Minneapolis to pitch the CMO of Target, you know what? You can take 3 days, be back at work, and then go right back to Florida, be with your family. And little did I know, actually, it was so fortunate Because one, my brain can use the respite of like talking to like other adults and thinking about work just for a few days.
Yeah.
But also it was flexible enough that any family, certainly a family who's not as fortunate as ours, is able to do the things they need to do, take the time they need to take off for what works for them. And then, my wife's spoken quite a bit about how difficult and traumatic and life-threatening her sort of post-birth period was, and the surgery she went through. And now then there, it really hit me in that hospital, trying to be a supportive partner and be that rock. And then somewhere, my brain drifts off and thinks, wow, well, if we didn't have the financial means that we have, if we didn't have the support structure that we have between family and friends and just the sort of existential security that we have as a couple, and then on top of that, knowing that I had, 16 weeks to take and my wife had the freedom to take the time she needed to take, like, what would that be like?
Yeah.
And then you learn that 1 in 4 women are back to work in this country after 2 weeks. And it becomes unconscionable. It becomes just frankly appalling. And that's how I've ended up inheriting this role. At the time, I think a lot of people were surprised when I would show up on CNBC talking about how I was planning on taking all 16 weeks because they thought, wait a minute, right? Hard charging, tech exec. I don't think anyone can accuse me of not being career oriented and driven, taking all this time away. And I just honestly, selfishly was like, I can do it. So of course I'm gonna. But it wasn't until after I got back that I had, whether it was employees or even just random people on Twitter, telling me that it gave them air cover because certainly in particular men gave them air cover because it meant that there was someone to point to who took that time and who is working to kind of normalize it. And now, I've been able to get this opportunity, getting to work with folks like you all who are actually working to try to change policy to make us not the exception of all the developed countries that just, every single one of them has an actual paid parental leave policy.
I want to zero in on something you mentioned about sort of like the sort of media coverage and the support that has come out as a result of you being really vocal about like your desire to be involved as a parent, taking all of the leave that's available to you. I talk to a lot of female founders of startups, and one of the first questions they get asked, and I'm going to ask you this right now, is, do you think that a modern man can have it all? Like, can you, you truly balance the demands of being a founder with being a parent?
You know what is so telling is in all the interviews I've done, I've never been asked that.
Yeah. I mean, that's terrible.
So thank you.
But it's time.
No, and to your point, I still catch myself getting an at reply or getting tagged on Twitter with the headline around babysitting my kid, or even just a headline around me doing a thing that a dad should be doing, like feeding their child in public. And I was prepped actually ahead of time by my partner Gary's wife about even just using that verb to babysit.
Yeah.
And it honestly had never even dawned on me. But now as I've seen it, it's shocking to me. And I think, I look forward to the day that it is normal, that it's not a headline and it's not a story, and that I'm happy you're asking me. Like it is a struggle because I want to be the best. I am a very competitive person. I want to be the best at everything I do. For my entire adult life, it was my career. And now it's also being a husband and being a dad. And no, I know I can't have it all. I know there have to be trade-offs. And I know I'm far from a perfect dad and far from a perfect businessman. I just want to be the best possible business dad that I can be.
Business dad.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Business dad.
Yeah, but I think it's one area too where I hope tech as a sector can really lead in this country, and it's one that actually we do. Frankly, our policies around this issue are very, very forward-thinking and progressive and generous, and I hope we can be a leader at a time when I think tech has missed a lot of opportunities to do that.
So there's this idea, I think, that a lot of sort of parents our age have when we're in a partnership around equally shared partnering, shared parenting, co-parenting. And there's this barrier early on in achieving that equal parenting, at least in my own experience around breastfeeding, that there's this like, if you choose to breastfeed, there's this like biological reality, which is that like, in my case, I am like the source of food. In your case, Serena is was the source of food. And there's this moment in Being Serena where you guys are sitting. This is the HBO series. Okay. It's amazing. If you want to see a portrait of heroism, watch this show. Yeah. So in one of the episodes, you're sitting next to each other on the couch, and she's trying to pump, and she's super nervous because she's about to go and have her first big tournament. And you're sitting right next to her Googling about whether anxiety about breastfeeding affects milk. And I just thought that was such a beautiful portrait of partnership. So
oh, good. You could have gone so many ways with that.
So what are your reflections for other co-parents who aren't the ones who gave birth, who aren't the ones who are providing milk, about how to be present and active as a parent, especially in those early moments?
Lord, I feel like, I know y'all wish my wife were here. I kind of wish she were here too, so she could give her commentary as I answer this. I mean, I think just being, I don't think it takes billboards, although I've done that once to be romantic. I think you hit the nail on the head with being present, and it's actually something that I've learned from her, and it's a skill I've honed from her because her career forces her to have to be so intensely focused for very specific periods of time. And then the only way she could maintain her sanity is to then be intensely not focused on that work for similar periods of time. And that's basically the time between training or being on the court and then the time being at home and not thinking about, game footage or tape or actually just, playing with the baby or spending time with me. And so I'm definitely the one to pull open the laptop and run a Google query to kind of figure out like, okay, let's just get like kind of a sense of what the consensus is on the internet. Because I'll be the first to admit, I mean, the nice thing about being an investor now is my brain is automatically wired to know I don't know everything because all I do is meet people who tell me something new about the world. And when they really impress us, right, we write them a check. Now I just assume like there's a new baby thing happening and I'm like, well, I have no clue. But like, I'm okay. I'm okay knowing that. And I think as the non-life-giving partner, it's very humbling. It's also very, very humbling when you're holding your child and she tries to nurse on you. Because then you've disappointed her. She's looking at you, she can't really communicate her disappointment, but you can tell she's disappointed. And then you're wondering if you should have been spending more time in the gym this week. And everyone just feels bad about the situation. But there are these other opportunities to be there. Whether ultimately it just comes back to being there for your partner. Yeah. And I think there's a reason there are all these cliches about, if men had to carry children, the species would have been extinct a long time ago. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think the best that we can do is be supportive there for our partners and know that, at 4 a.m. when neither y'all has slept enough and you're going to say things that you're probably going to regret in the morning because it's not coming from a place of malice. It's coming from a place of exhaustion. That y'all just got to accept that, like, okay, what happens then when you're still sleep training in the wee hours of morning, that is a special time. And when we get there, when we get back to our sanity and our sleep levels slightly normalized the next day or the next week or the next month, we're not going to take those things personally. And we're going to understand that, look, we're still, like, we made an agreement to do this together. And we both have the same outcome in mind, which is to have a happy, healthy baby. And look, I know I can be obnoxious because I love going to Google to find stuff, and I feel very comfortable being like, okay, well, Google seems to think this is the answer, or Bing. Let's not just give all the credit to Google, but like, right? if I find enough articles, I do enough diligence, I feel pretty confident that like, okay, this is a reasonable outcome. And I'm sure sometimes that makes my wife just want to smack me because I seem like this know-it-all. And look, I know, and like that is a tension that exists and an area where you just keep trying to come back to that equilibrium and just, you know.
Well, and you mentioned something that's really important, and I think that often gets lost in this conversation, which is when you have a newly arrived child, you need to welcome and nurture that child and bond with that child and all of that. But then there's also a person who has just done something that's kind of a big deal.
Legit.
Right? Like, it's legit hard even for the best athlete in the world.
Yeah.
And so when you think about how you supported Serena through that process, like, what does it mean to support an ambitious woman and new mother as a partner?
This comes up in a different way sometimes, and I want to answer your question, but like, a lot of people frame this as a way of almost being surprised that I, as a man in a relationship with this woman who is clearly continues to have an amazing career and all these accolades, is like okay or comfortable with the idea. And it's so absurd. It really, and I mean, I know it exists, but it says so much more about the insecurity of the men who ask it than anything else. Because there are so many things sticking to a hetero world right now, like there are so many things we as men will brag about in our partners and be proud of and boast about in our partners. Why shouldn't success and awesomeness and greatness in career and profession and work be one of those things? And like, it is, it's actually, in a lot of ways, it's actually easy to support someone like her, because even when it's just hard and you're hitting your lows and you're just the last hour of like just frustration, and you just know you've got like 30 minutes left in you before you're either going to collapse or just fall apart, you take a second and you're like, all right, you know what? All things considered, it's not that bad for me. I think I can pull this together.
Wife's still alive.
Because look at what she's doing and look at how she's handling it. And it is, I think no matter who your partner is, having seen firsthand, childbirth, you're automatically in awe. But yeah, when your partner is Serena Williams, it's really easy to suck it up and do what needs to be done. And it works both ways. And that's the thing, there's not a Being Alexis documentary, and that's a good thing.
A lot of board meetings.
Yeah, we tried that. It's funny you mentioned it. I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if we had like a crew just kind of follow on for a couple days and just have me doing like office hours with startups and like just hanging out with Gary, talking, strategy and investing. And we reviewed the tape, and it was just like the most boring content. There's a reason millions of people don't tune in to watch us at work, Gary. It's just our work is boring.
Something else really interesting, which is, you're talking about what it takes to support Serena, and like that people are so surprised about, why aren't we celebrating like women with these amazing talents and skills? There's another side of that too, which is identity as a man, and what it means to be a man taking care of another human being. How do you think about this is a very big question, but what is masculinity in the context of fatherhood for you?
Oh, I really think there is a sea change happening, and I'm glad. I love it when I piss off people on social media, explicitly calling out how, and kind of actually flipping the script on some of these ideas of hypermasculinity, where, it would be an insulting thing for one man to say another man is weak or cowardly, and you can think of all the words that are used to describe that, and I love flipping the script and pissing people off when I talk about a man not stepping up and doing his job as a partner and a dad as weak and cowardly. Because, what else do you call it? What do you call it when you don't have the courage to like hold your baby and feed him in public? Or what do you call it when you don't have the courage to just be there let alone, you know, like I said, taking full advantage of the leave programs if you are lucky enough to even have them offered to start to normalize this. And that's kind of fun. I think we're seeing the sea change, and there are so many examples of it. I think Me Too has certainly fueled a part of this. I think it's also even, you know, I think it's even silly things too. I was joking backstage about I think they're called like sexy Swedish dads. Have you seen this?
Have you seen?
Google it.
Who's seen Sexy Swedish Dads?
And these none of you. Oh, it's a whole meme,
it's
man.
Time.
These Swedish dudes walking around their baby Bjorns, and they get their lattes, and they got their kids strapped to their chest, and they're just talking to each other about the game last night and hanging out and doing dad things. And I think there's enough elements now sort of in the zeitgeist that are starting to change things. And I mean, we even still see it in we still live in a world where celebrity men are championed for acknowledging they have a kid. Is the bar that low? Are these guys that weak and that cowardly that we're golf clapping them for being like, yeah, I have a child? Like, really? Really? It's sad. But I think the sea change is coming. And I mean, it's fun too because I mean, I've got my buddies, but like, especially if I'd maybe live a pretty mobile life, but like I have a pretty good routine at my gym where, I mean, maybe 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, I'm there just getting a triple dose of testosterone, right? I'm hanging with the guys, we're lifting, we're talking, we're comparing like protein and gains, like. And
with a Z.
Of course, yes, you are familiar with gains, right? And one of them is an expecting dad, and like the conversations we have are as hyper masculine as you imagine, and then it's also like, hey, so like, what's your preference on sleep sacks? Like, because you can go with the swaddle method, and you feel like you're earning it, but the sleep sacks get the job done quick. And so are you going for efficiency, or do you feel right? And I think I like these moments, and I really believe that the more, I think when social media can be at its best is when it's actually bringing more transparency to this. I actually think more dads literally just taking selfies with their kids, hanging out, actually makes a difference to kind of normalize this stuff to the point where it's, you know, it's just a thing we expect, and it's no longer a headline. It's no longer.
So taking care of people is a part of the founding story of your VC firm. It's also a part of the founding story of Reddit. You've been pretty public about that your family was going through some stuff as you were getting Reddit off the ground. And I think a lot of people don't know that as many people in the US are new parents every year as are taking care of seriously ill family members. 1 in 6 people in America provide 20 hours a week of unpaid care. How did your experience dealing with your family's need for care back in 2005 affect the way that you thought about yourself as a founder?
Well, so for background, about 4 months into starting Reddit, my mother was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And, you know, actually this ties in earlier. What that did for me was give me a really amazing model of what a partner should be doing. And I saw that in my father, and I saw what he did for her. That was a great role model of masculinity for me that I was lucky enough to have a front row seat to, combined with an amazing role model for strength and toughness in a mother who never for a minute let what was, you know, a very serious, very real thing happening to her, never let it be a burden on me, and did everything in her power to always make me feel like, you know, I was 4 months into starting a business. We had 12 grand in the bank. There was a company called Dig, which thankfully no one knows about anymore because we buried them. But they were very well funded. They were Silicon Valley darlings. You know, they were the Goliath to our David. And And she never for a minute let me think, one, that we were going to fail, or two, that I should feel guilty for needing to spend time working on this business. And I still did everything I could to come back and, and felt like I actually got to spend a great amount of time with her. But that's because that support structure was there, and because my mother had that strength and that conviction, and I saw that same strength and that same conviction in my wife as she went through everything she went through. And my father was there and able, he was actually himself an entrepreneur. He has a very small travel agency, which I know is quite an anachronism, but he actually still going too, out in Western Maryland.
Wait, you did Hipmunk,
and I did Hipmunk.
right?
That was an awkward dinner conversation when I told him we were doing a travel search engine. But he was right. He told
We're
me.
gonna disrupt you, Dad.
Yeah, he was like, good luck. It's a terrible industry. And he was right. He was right. His clients also skew older, and they're taking their first cruise. Typical Hipmunk user, they're just booking a quick flight to go fly somewhere. But anyway, seeing that, and then also seeing the flexibility that entrepreneurship afforded him, combined with the fact that even when I was having my worst days, one, I knew I wasn't working for anyone other than myself. And so the hours that I was spending, which were in a way therapeutic, but actually terrible therapy, and it was years later that I actually started dealing with a lot of that stuff in a healthier way. But work was a way for me to just forget. And I knew I wasn't doing it for anyone else. If I'd had a boss at the time, I think it would have been really hard to show up at work. But to have been doing it for myself, and then to have had the support system that I had, made me feel like we couldn't lose, because there are hard days as an entrepreneur, and we talk about them, and again, just like we talk about startups as our babies, we talk about them in really silly terms, like how bipolar it is, or how depressing the lows are. But your worst day as a founder is nowhere near the worst day is what you could have when health is a factor.
Does that affect the way that you think about who to invest in now?
In ways, it's very hard. It certainly would also be very direct in that first meeting be like, so tell me, what was the hardest moment of your life? How did you deal with it?
It seems
Ideally,
like a good question.
the more traumatizing, the better. No, but I think there is a way. I think you're right. I think there is a way to start gleaning this. We actually have a founder. This is going to feel like it was a plant, but we have a founder of a startup called Ping, who we backed, who we learned actually pretty late in the during office hours, during the sort of later stage interview process, had a sick mother, and actually had written about how my story from years earlier had affected and helped him, and how he dealt with and sort of rationalized being an entrepreneur with having a loved one who, was dying. Yeah. And I think, it's very hard. This is because it's so early stage, there isn't a lot of data. It's a lot of intuition. And so I'd be lying if I said knowing that about him and seeing that didn't make me feel more compelled to believe that, he'd be a stronger founder. And it's interesting because that dynamic, you see that dynamic a few ways. I know this is not about immigration, but I've been also a very pro, you can read all the stuff I've written, immigration person. But I think similarly, you see a different kind of appreciation and hunger in founders who themselves are immigrants to this country, or who are, say, a generation away from folks who have, because they saw that firsthand growing up. They saw that appreciation. And yeah, this is hard to quantify, but there's that extra kind of doggedness or relentlessness you need in a great founder. And wherever they find those sources of strength, those are the things that usually separate the ones who are successful from the ones who aren't.
One observation I have, doing a nonprofit startup, is that the funders, you at first think about a funder relationship as like, oh, I need the capital to do my thing. Mm-hmm. But what it actually is a long-term, hopefully, relationship with a real strategic partner. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to know about what you're interested in an entrepreneur, but what do you think as a founder entrepreneurs should be looking for as sort of the qualities that make for a good long-term partner in achieving success with their business?
It shouldn't be the first thing that comes to mind, but integrity is. And VC has very rightly been held under a lot of scrutiny in the last few years. I actually hope it doesn't stop. I hope the scrutiny increases, because I don't think it's shocking, but integrity shouldn't be the first thing that comes to mind, but it really is. And when having spoken to enough founders who have been on the wrong end of that, it's clear that this is actually a really unheralded competitive advantage for the people who are going to be long-term partners and who are going to obviously do the right thing when it's just the sort of basic standard of human decency, but also opt to do the right thing, especially when it's a much harder decision to be made. Everyone in the equation is still in the business to make money, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these are for-profit enterprises, but I keep coming back to integrity because we still haven't had enough of a shakeout in the industry. I think that's still coming, and I think that will ultimately dictate. And you're starting to see it actually. Founders are explicitly saying, "Hey, how come all the people in the room look like Alexis? How come they're all white dudes?
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't a kind of firm I want to work for."
What do you see as your role as a venture capitalist, as a thought leader in advancing these initiatives that are growing now around diversity and inclusion in technology and beyond?
I'm selfishly motivated now. Because I have a daughter of color, and so I hate it whenever it starts with, "Oh, I didn't care about this thing until it affected me personally," right? There are organizations that I've worked with for years that are really doing the great work on this, from like Donors Choose to Black Girls Code, which is now cool. I mean, Kimberly Bryant's amazing, and over the years, watching that organization develop has been just awesome. And now that I have a little black girl who I hope is going to code one day, I can't wait to have her enrolled in. When I first met Kimberly years ago, I never could have expected that. But now it's like, hey, look, great. Here we go.
Yeah.
That was a wise investment of my time and resources. But so selfishly, right, there is that motivation. But I also think, just as an industry, it is in our best interests to benefit from as wide a range of people and ideas and experiences and backgrounds as possible. And we have a ton of work to do. And I think at Initialize, we're in a fortunate position because we do write the first checks. We are the earliest investors. And so we have an opportunity to help broaden that and help have an impact. We still represent actually a really small part of the broader venture world. So in terms of raw dollars, we still can't have nearly as big of an impact as some of these larger, billion-dollar firms. But I think we as an overall industry really, really need to get this right, because we're already seeing the impact tech is having on the world. And it is, even just the fact that every business is going to be a software business, every nonprofit is going to be a software nonprofit. Software is going to be a part of all of this. And the people who wield it will have such tremendous power, the ability, and not just wealth creation, although that's sort of the most obvious one. The gap that this will create between the people who are able to wield it and those who aren't will only further widen in this country. And I think this is why, I hope just getting started on this paid leave issue, which I really hoped we were going to get something done a lot sooner. Backstage, I was smacked with a harsh dose of reality about how things will work in DC. But
in DC, 3 years' time is lightning speed.
I'm hoping end of the year we're getting something passed.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope so, but I would love to see that. Yes.
So, I mean, that's one thing, one area where you really stand out as a leader in tech. There are a lot of tech leaders who are willing to speak out about issues, but you go a step further. You're actually willing to call for public policy. And tell me what message you would have for other leaders about why public policy is a part of the work that leaders need to do.
So my first exposure, I had the best case scenario because my first exposure in DC was fighting against SOPA and PIPA, and we watched two bills that looked like they were inevitable. Everyone told us they were going to be inevitable, become unthinkable within a few weeks because tech, but also more broadly, just American citizens started calling in and got those bills squashed. So I walked away from that thinking, wow, this is like the best episode of Schoolhouse Rock ever. Like, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. The people spoke up and they listened. And so I got a very rose-tinted view from that. And so that, and when we got Title II passed, although that's gone now, but when President Obama helped get that done, and Tom Wheeler signed on for net neutrality, it was another win, and it was like, all right, this is working, okay. And so I come at it from that perspective, but the harsh dose of reality is, San Francisco is geographically a far trip from Washington, D.C. I know because my dad still lives in the D.C. area, so Dad, I need to visit. I know. I'm going to hopefully see you in a few weeks, all right? It's been a while. I got to visit. But there is this disconnect where I think a lot of tech leaders will engage when they have to, when they are dragged kicking and screaming. And the only thing that I've found, and you can tell me if I'm totally wrong about this, but the thing that I've found on these trips to DC and the few relationships I have developed with senators and reps is that, one, they are humans too. And as humans, the value of relationships really matters. And as humans who value relationships, those are things that take time. Those are not things that happen. You can be cynical about it and say, well, if you throw enough money at it, great, relationship made, things are done. But that's not really how I think we can create lasting change. And I think by spending the time, by investing the time, by being a resource, by just being helpful, by having those open lines of communication, as well as speaking up publicly.
With this issue, in a bipartisan way, right? Like, there's actual movement on the right on this issue in a way that is kind of unprecedented for something that has been, that's about, providing public support for families.
Yes. Yeah, I was still trying to get you to explain to me the whole Rubio connection.
Yeah.
Because the senator from Florida there has been a champion.
He's working on a bill
for it.
Someday we're going to see it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But look, I say this, my political leanings are pretty clear. I think the way that this works, and frankly, the way that we saw it work with SOPA PIPA, and to a certain extent, net neutrality, was through bipartisan support. Yeah. And I think because this is an issue that is it is heart. The heart and soul of this issue is around the family. And if we're a nation that values the family and values the strength of that as the bedrock of America, giving people time to invest with their family when it is being forged seems like a pretty straightforward thing. And I hope that from the sort of private, from the private sector standpoint, we can point to the industry of tech and show that, there's a lot of capitalists here who are still very motivated to make sure that their workers, who are very high value members of the workforce, get the time off.
Yep.
And
that leadership has been incredibly powerful beyond tech. We've been able to win family leave at Walmart, 10 weeks of fully paid leave for all full-time workers.
Yes.
Starbucks, leave for full-time and part-time workers, including dads and adoptive parents. And at the Senate hearing, the Republican-held Senate hearing a few weeks ago, the Republican senators were quoting that change in corporate practice that's really been spearheaded by tech. So I think you're right on the money that's exactly where that is.
Wow.
I have to tell people that it's time for questions.
I want to ask you a question.
Well, you can in just a second.
All right.
In 5 minutes, we will be taking your questions, so start thinking. And if you have a question, a real question with a question mark at the end, then go right over there, right back there. You can start lining up. Go ahead and ask your question. And I have some fun questions for you.
Okay. All right. All right. So we talked about this, but I want to make sure everyone else gets to hear it. What can we do if I assume everyone in this room is all for it, paid family leave, let's make it happen. What can we do aside from, supporting and donating specifically?
Yeah.
Like what's your marching orders for us?
Paidleave.us. That is where you can go to join and donate. And we're building a roadmap right now to win national policy that is connected to who are the specific legislators who are going to actually be the ones who make the decision to move policy through. And those legislators are all across the country. And so when you join Plus, we will connect you directly to the one legislator who you can affect directly about paid family leave to help move the issue through. The other two things you can do are talk to your friends about family leave. Most people still keep this issue pretty private. And I think that one of the reasons it's been 20 years since we've had any movement on this issue at the national level is that it's really been staying behind closed doors instead of being part of a broad public conversation. And then the final thing you can do is advocate for family leave in your own workplace. We were just talking about how what employers do make a huge difference in how policymakers think about an issue. And we have resources at paidleave.us that can help you do that. We've advised many companies about what high quality policy looks like. Fun questions for you. Okay. These are fun questions.
All right. Yours were fun too.
I see some people started to line up. Okay. So you get like a sentence for each of these.
Okay.
What is the new thing that Olympia is doing these days?
Oh, I have a video of it. We're not going to be able to get it up, are we? Okay. Well, I taught her how. Actually, I don't know. Actually, her mom. Okay.
This is way more than one sentence.
Sorry. She knows how to take food and make you think she's feeding you and then pull it away as you try to bite and then laughs at it.
I love that mirroring so much.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
And so she learned because mom did it to me, thought it was funny. Olympia thought it was hilarious. Then mom kept doing it to me and Olympia kept thinking it was hilarious. And then like a day or two later, I was like, Olympia, you need to do this to mom. And like, I coached her up. And then I was like, hey, baby, I think Olympia wants to give you some banana. And she was like, oh, all right, Olympia, and sat down. And then Olympia puts out her hand, and Mama goes for it, and she pulls it away.
All right,
that's the whole point of having a kid is to punk your partner.
That is the whole point of parenting.
The whole point.
That's a real joy.
Yeah.
What's your new favorite parenting hack?
Oh, Lord.
Sleep sacks?
No, we're past. My new favorite parenting hack is, I think, like, if we're on a long plane ride together, I didn't think peekaboo could actually be distracting. And then I also didn't realize peekaboo could last for, like, 45 minutes.
So true.
But, I mean, it works really, really well. The only weird part is, like, for the other person, as an outsider watching it going on, it looks like an insane. You look like an insane person, because it's like I should know better. I'm not disappearing when I put myself behind this thing. But as long as the baby's concerned, as far as she's concerned, yeah, I disappear when that cloth goes up.
Fun forever. So you have, like, viewed from Instagram, you sometimes have, like, some pretty glamorous stuff happening in your life.
It's all Photoshop.
Yeah. So I want to know, what is the least glamorous moment you've had in the last month?
Oh, gosh. It involves baby poop.
Clearly.
It's just like there's a constant flow of like stains and whatnot that you just find in your clothing. And it's just, it's like, look, we all, I think what's the funny thing about Instagram is we all choose these very special sort of best moments. And look, I'm guilty of that too, right? You will never, if you follow Olympia Ohanian on Instagram or me, she has more followers than me, which is very I mean, I'm proud because like you want to see your kid surpass you. You just you don't think it's gonna happen that fast, but like you're not gonna show up on that and see a photo of her at like 3 in the morning just screaming, like because like those are not the moments that we share on Instagram, right? We want to share those perfect Instagram moments, but. And I'm not a shareholder.
So far beyond one sentence now.
No, but I have to. I'm not a shareholder in Twitter. But if you follow my wife on Twitter, she's just like 3 in the morning. She'll just have this stream of consciousness because she doesn't sleep, or she'll just remark about either the joys or the woes of being a mother and parenting, and these things just take off. And I think that the other side of it is it gives us a release to just say something out into the ether, and you know, it's not just your partner and your baby who's hearing it, it's actually the world, and you find out that like you're not the only parent, you're not the only mom who missed your baby's first steps, and it's okay. And I think it's there's a duality there that makes it actually, I think, kind of nice to be a parent in this age, even though we are very strict about screen time. Junior's not.
Last one,
okay.
And then we'll go to our
I'll
first
actually try to keep
audience
this one
question.
quick. Okay.
And you can just answer this with a yes or no.
Okay.
Was the royal wedding cake any good?
I don't think I had any.
I thought so.
I don't think I had any.
No, I was hypothesizing about this,
Yeah.
that nobody
No.
actually eats the cake.
Oh yeah, no. I think I remember it going around. I also try to watch out for the carbs. If they made that cake out of pure whey protein, I'd go for like 3 slices. But no, I did not have any of the cake. No.
Okay.
But I'm sure
now,
it was great.
Inquiring minds now know.
Yeah.
First audience question.
Hi, Alexis. I'm Jagnesh.
Hello.
I wanted to ask this question where why do a lot of founders have the same rhetoric of going from being a founder to a funder?
Because we're boring and we aren't very creative. I don't know. I think, well, I'll tell you why I did it. And we were early investors in Coinbase, and credit to Gary, and we were talking at the end of last year, and you know, here's this amazing company that we got to be one of the first investors in, and is potentially going to really change the world in a lot of ways. And Gary had remarked how unique it was, and how, you know, awesome, frankly, he said it was that that I was lucky enough to have founded, you know, a company like Reddit, this $1 billion company. But he said, but we here at Initialize get the chance to potentially do that for dozens of companies, to have an even bigger and broader impact, and help far more founders who are actually a lot better at this than we are. But we have experience, and we have relationships, and we have things that we can provide value on. And that made coming back to Initialize full time all the sweeter and all the more exciting. It's being an investor now means it still means gray hairs. All the ones that I've got in my beard are from like basically the last few years back at Reddit growing that. But it's like an amazing professor job. Because you get to help, you get to be supportive, you have these office hours, and there's always a new flow of ideas and founders who come through your door, pushing you to the limits of what you think might actually exist in 10 or 15, 20 years, and it's invigorating. So that's why I do it. But I think most do it because it's an easier job than being a founder. and yeah, that's it. You're not gonna catch me wearing one of those vests though.
I want to give big points for a very short and specific question.
Yeah, because a great question. My answer was way too long, but thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Alexis. I'm Patricia.
Hello.
You and Serena, AO, have done a lot with your life. You guys have achieved a lot together. Mm-hmm. What are the top 2 things on your bucket list right now, given you've already achieved so much?
Whoa.
And also,
okay.
Sorry, second question, a not serious one, but what's your favorite dad joke?
Oh.
Seem like a dad joke type of guy.
I'll allow it.
My baby still doesn't respond. My dad joke repertoire, according to my wife, all of my jokes are lame dad jokes. But I actually don't think I don't have any quality dad jokes yet. Junior's, I mean, I guess playing the trick on my wife with the feeding thing, it's not really, there's no punchline, but you know, it's that. But top 2 things on the bucket list. Okay. So again, this is the struggle of business dad. Okay. So one of them is really like I still very much want to turn Initialized into a huge part of early stage venture. I want it to be a standard that is set for how to do business that way and how to be that first investor and how to support these companies. And then I'll put the other bucket list item of, you know, I would love to have more kids. We'll see if that happens. But the bucket list item, oh, well, thank you.
Reproduce.
Like we were very fortunate because we got, I mean, that happened slightly unexpectedly. I mean, we basically did not, gotta be careful with double negatives.
Yeah.
Try to not have kids. Anyway, we were very fortunate because it happened a lot faster.
You stopped preventing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I had so many friends who had shared stories of trying for years and years and years. And, you know, we realized when we were in our mid-30s and we just were very pleasantly surprised when, okay, that worked out. And so I'd love to have more kids. But if not, I mean, there are adoption, there's other options. However, though, my bucket list item is to make sure that whatever the House Ohanian is, that however many people occupy it or pets and people occupy it, that it's going to be something that whenever, hopefully I get a few minutes to reflect back on my life when I finally either get uploaded to the Matrix or kick the bucket, that is something that I am even more proud of than everything I hope to do with my professional career. So whatever that means, like that's what I'm aiming for. And believe me, I have every intention of making Reddit a footnote in my professional career compared to Initialized. And then so if this family thing is going to footnote that one, like it's going to be good. It's going to be real good.
Hi there. I'm wondering what your perspective or philosophy is about parental leave in smaller startups. It's kind of like if you're a woman and you want to have a kid and you go join a startup of 10 people, like the reality is there's only 10 people and your work is really impactful and important. And so what is your approach or theory about leave at a startup where 10 people is probably the most crucial time to diversify your workforce and hire women? Yeah. I don't know, maybe you think about what would have been your perspective too in 2005, right? When the company was a lot smaller.
Yeah. So this has actually come up recently. We just backed a founder who her baby is now, I think, 5 months old or 6 months old. So, I mean, she was spending a lot of that time, like actually like starting to pitch investors, starting to build a prototype. So that's, you know, that's a company of just one. And she just decided, you know what, I just had this baby. It's time to start this business. And it's awesome. And she's found a way to make that work because it was just sort of her. So, I mean, you could argue she decided to take some leave because she was basically unemployed because she was just starting this company. Okay. We had another founder who he wrote me after an office hour session because he had just accepted an employee who was just about to have a baby. And it was a male employee. And he said, well, what do? We've got probably 15 employees. We don't have a policy yet because we don't have an HR person yet. And I don't think that's unreasonable because you're still at a point where the company probably hasn't even raised the Series A yet. Like it's still a pretty informal thing. But the advice that I gave him and the advice that he actually ended up following, which was, I was like, look, 16 weeks is what we have an Initialized. 16 weeks we feel is basically the sort of like the standard, the bar for tech. You are a fast-growing company where talent means everything. And I'm going to level with you. If you tell this new hire that they have 16 weeks after their baby is born to take, and they can be flexible with it, and they can take every Monday, Wednesday, Friday off, or whatever days they need until they've exhausted all those days, he will be so much more motivated and invigorated and excited to be a part of your business that you're going to get so much more long-term value out of him, not to mention the work that he will be doing, because believe me, like, once everything's good on the home front, like it's a nice mental exercise. If you hired the right person, they're going to be really excited to sling a little bit of code and get to work, just to kind of jog their brain again back into like work life. And he followed suit with it. Now you have to get back to me in another few months to see how it all turns out in the end. But it is a lot harder with these small companies, no doubt. But I think the long-term value again, and this comes back to like finding partners that are interested in the long term. If you made the right choice with the hire, then you're not going to have any regrets.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And if you made the wrong choice with the hire, then it's not parental leave's fault. You made the wrong choice with the hire, and it's still a bet worth taking, because it's the sort of thing that someone is not going to forget.
A couple of data points I would add there. I appreciated that in part of your question, you were talking about that in having a diverse workforce in early stage is really important. We've actually seen studies that show that when early stage startups have paid family leave, they're more likely to attract women to their companies. So if you're thinking about like early stage startups as like the big fish of the future, where you're cultivating your big leaders, it's actually a very good strategy for diversifying that sort of leadership pool. And then I think this is where public policy really comes in as a critical component. I mean, I run a 11-person company, and I've had 2 people go out on maternity leave now, and the existence of California's state level paid family leave policy is what allowed me to be able to afford to give the leave to my new mom worker here in California. So that's really, really critical and important. And the final little tidbit is globally, family leave is actually much longer. Like the international average maternity leave, the UN minimum maternity leave is 14 weeks. That's what the UN says is like what good countries do. And most Western countries are offering, 6 months or a year. Business owners in those countries say that longer leave is actually easier to manage because you can train someone up to fill that gap, and it becomes a really awesome way to cross-train and bring more talent into your business. So I think there's this big opportunity for business leaders to think about, like if we employ human beings, and this is something you've said before, right? Yeah. We employ human beings who have families and lives, and a family leave policy is really a first step toward actually doing forward-thinking planning around that reality, instead of being like, oh, geez, these humans have people they love.
How dare they?
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
We have 4 more questions.
Okay.
Hi. So I was wondering, what's your most frequented subreddit and why?
I like r/Futurology. It's a massive, massive community of people who are just talking about, I mean, it's very Silicon Valley, but who are just talking about all the potentially, hopefully, they're all mostly optimists, so all the potentially, hopefully wonderful things technology can do. But then I like balancing that out with r/dad reflexes, because it's just funny GIFs of dads being superheroes caught on like Nest cameras because their toddler's about to, like, I don't know, fall off a cliff, and they're just able to just grab and save her at the last minute, and it's just like, yeah, dad life. Like at some point you earn your stripes because you're holding your baby, she slips a little, and your partner doesn't notice that you're able to catch her before she falls, and you're just like, yeah, dad reflexes. Saved her. No one noticed. Baby's great. Yeah.
Alexis, thanks for being here. I'll have to bookmark those 2.
Oh, right on.
Back to your points about diversity in tech. I was wondering if there are certain standards or metrics that you've considered holding your portfolio companies to before investing in them to make sure these values trickle down.
This is going to be something that I think, so I don't have a good answer for, because at this early of a stage, we're usually investing in 1 or 2 founders. Like there's no even team to speak of. And so the only metrics, like basically there's no past track record. We can certainly strongly encourage them to make sure, and as is sort of the kind of obvious thing to do, to ensure that they're like getting as broad a range of candidates as possible, and things like the Rooney Rule have actually shown an ability to make real change. But it's hard. It's hard to quantify what their intent is at that early a stage. I think the best things that we can do and probably should do more of is building more of that network and building more of that pipeline, because the first N, or really the first 10 employees at a company, have such a huge impact on culture. And the default advice, which I do believe is good advice, is start with your immediate friend network, or the people who you worked with, you were most impressed by, who you most would want to create something with, the smartest people the hardest working people And I do think that's good advice. The challenge is, for most people, right, that pool is limited. And I think the best way that we can help them overcome that and still get them access to the same, to awesome people that they need to work with, is to help build out that network that makes up for that supply. And this is something I hope we can do a better job of through software. And I don't know if it looks like a social network. I'm just thinking out loud now. But there is an opportunity here. The challenge is, right, the default advice is always that same thing, and that is so much of why those first 10 hires all tend to come from a similar pool of candidates, which ultimately sets a company on a trajectory that is, not ideal. There's a lot of work to do there, but the trying to set I wish there were more data to pull from their personal backgrounds to get a sense of what their intent is going to be and how they're going to act as founders. Certainly parts of it come up in the Q&A, but
have you seen what they're doing in Hollywood now with the inclusion writers on contracts for big stars? I wonder if there's an application there in companies that we invest in.
Potentially. I think between that and, like I said earlier, the Rooney Rule, you have good practical examples of ways that you basically just it becomes something that is inexcusable, that you have no excuses. You have to fill this. You have to at least get someone in the door and interview someone. And I think more often than not, what you end up finding is, there's talent in your network that you didn't realize. I wonder.
It's a great question.
Hi, Alexis. First off, thank you for being here, as well as you, Katie, and just talking to us tonight. I appreciate that. So as you have a background of being an exec, an investor, and an entrepreneur, my question for you is, what are 3 key characteristics that you think entrepreneurs and leaders possess?
Our spirit animal, or our mascot at Initialize, is the honey badger. And I think they're all attributes of the honey badger. So you've seen the video, right? You know what the honey badger meme? Okay. Honey badgers can take a poisonous snake bite and they just take a nap. And then 10 minutes later they wake up, and it would kill any other creature. Google it, it's real. And they just walk it off. So a founder needs to be able to take a poisonous snake bite, take a nap, and just walk it off. No, they need to
resilience. I think.
They need that resilience, exactly. And there needs to be a kind of a resilience and a relentlessness, because you're going to hear no far more often than you're going to hear yes. They need to be compelling. And I actually had I spent 30 minutes trying to describe this. Gary and I had a whole session about this, because it's not they have to be charismatic. It's not they have to be outgoing. They don't have to be extroverted. They just have to be compelling. And it's so hard to, I don't know, it comes from deeply understanding the problem you're trying to solve, right? Having talked to a ton of customers or a ton of potential people, it's an ability. Someone as compelling as someone who is going to be able to talk someone who's got a really comfortable job at Google out of it and take the chance at working in an early stage company. Someone who's compelling is going to be able to take 99 rejections of potential clients until they finally get to the one and are finally able to get their first 10 customers. And then a third one would be, I think good leaders are curious, and I think that is something that I hope I'm not being naive when I say that. I really think curiosity. I know intellectual curiosity is not very in vogue right now in popular culture, but I really do think when I think of truly great leaders, they are really curious. And when I think of the people that really motivate and inspire me, they are the ones who know that they still have a lot more to learn and are just genuinely interested in learning about new things. And when in situations that are new to them, are more likely to be trying to pay attention and understand and empathize, as opposed to just dictate and act like they know what they're talking about.
This is the last question.
Okay, no pressure.
I'll keep this short. Appreciate you being here tonight, and I work in higher ed, so I really appreciate the tours you did at universities as well.
Oh, thank you. So 82 universities, man. Whew.
Awesome.
That was a fun bus tour.
So you made clear tonight that you want the tech industry to be leaders on the issue of parental leave. I have a question on media literacy and a question about how specifically the tech industry can become better leaders on the issue of that, specifically Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit. So how would you say the tech industry could sort of beef up their leadership on that front? Media literacy, specifically educating, the next generation of media consumers, especially around election time.
Yeah, this is this is not gonna go away, and I'm not saying there's a cop out. I mean, I hope we're all prepared as a society for this. Like, this is the new normal in a lot of ways. Whether it's the battle over fake news, or just simply the fact that we are now in an age where even facts are debatable, and I don't know how that box closes. I don't see a way that Pandora's box closes on that one. So, media literacy is very quickly become such an important issue, and I hope I'm not being cynical about it, but I do worry because I don't know. There are so many things that I wish we could provide as an education system, even far before they get to higher ed, around everything from like basic financial literacy. Like, hey, by the way, that student loan debt you're about to sign up for, here's what it means. Here's how compounding interest works. I felt like I was a pretty fortunate kid, and I didn't learn about any of this stuff until I got to college. And then I was really pissed. Because I was like, I went to some pretty good public schools in Maryland, and like no one taught me about this. So everything from financial literacy to media literacy is a tall order right now, and the pain of not having that healthy immune system has obviously been felt right now. And okay, so what can tech do for it? Let's assume, well. Yeah. I think tech platforms will have to decide ultimately, and it seems like there's a direction they're going, but they'll have to decide ultimately if they really want to whole hog embrace the agnosticism of just being a platform versus just coming, I don't want to be too leading with this, but like, I don't want to say accepting, deciding or basically orienting themselves around actually saying, no, like, we are going to make decisions. We are going to editorialize. And I think we're in a middle ground right now where editorialization happens a little bit, but not enough to say it's a self-aware editorial organization. And the open platform happens as well, but not so fully that it's enough to say it's a purely open platform. And we're in this awkward middle ground where, I mean, if we could, I think the part, and this is the part that really I don't have an answer for, even if all the major platforms were able to somehow, let's just say for the English-speaking world, let's not even try to bring in other cultures and languages, even if they're able to come with a set of terms and policies and sort of accord of like what is real news, I actually think that we wouldn't fully solve the problem, because I think there are just a lot of people who are perfectly happy just getting content that reinforces their belief. And I mean, there's enough studies in this and in that confirmation bias to know that that's a real phenomenon that we as humans just that we suffer from it.
We're going to have to leave that there.
No, I was going to solve it right now. I mean, I don't want you to feel like I don't answer. It's just I think even if we got that full accountability and that full end of, okay, here is the responsibility of like a media organization now thrust upon these platforms, it still doesn't fully solve the problem, which is a whole lot of people in our society who don't want to participate, who don't want to be a part of that. They would rather find the content that reinforces the way that they feel. And you know what, if that's about your favorite sports team, it's not a bad thing. If you just agree that the Yankees suck, no one gets hurt by that. Right, a few Yankees fans' feelings are hurt, but like that's a perfectly wonderful thing that we all celebrate because we all believe that such and such is the greatest baseball team ever. But obviously, when it affects politics, when it affects society, it has very, very real repercussions. But it's the same, I don't know, it's the same herd mentality. It's the same brokenness that we have as humans.
Thank you for the very deep
what a downer.
Final question. But we're gonna end the way that every Inforum program ends.
Oh yeah.
With a
Baby
question
video?
that could be an upper.
Oh, I have it. Okay.
What is your 60-second idea to change the world?
You know
I
me.
know you can.
You know
do
I'm gonna get it done in
60
60 seconds.
I believe in you.
I
This is your moment
am
to
so
show.
cocky. I'm just running down the clock right now. My idea to change the world is very simple. Paid parental leave.
Yes.
And a minimum, let's give it a year.
Yeah.
Worldwide. Does that seem like a reasonable
love
place to start? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I want.
Okay, paid family leave within the next year, for a year.
Yes.
For everyone. I love it. Let's give a big round of applause to Alexis Ohanian.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight here at Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. I'm Katie Bethel. If you'd like to join the fight for family leave, come to paidleave.us and have a great evening.
All right.